I'd like to call to order today's meeting for the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. A couple of things I want to go over. First off, for people that are attending the meeting virtually, remember to unmute your microphone before speaking. And for those in the chambers, remember to speak into your mic. Also, for those joining us virtually, you will be given an opportunity to speak at the appropriate time. But once your time is up, you will not be allowed to add further testimony unless one of the commissioners asks you a specific question. So with that, we could have our opening comments, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. Normally, we'll go through the agenda and find out which cases we're going to hear and which ones we'll take on consent. Normally at this time we would be going over the minutes of our previous meeting. Last meeting we ended up with just a quorum left, and so we will not, and part of the quorum that was here at that time are not with us today, so we will hold off on voting for the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. We may see an email in the next day or two, maybe next week. We're working through the process to see if that is a possibility. And if it does become a possibility, we will need somebody to make a motion. We will need somebody to make a second. And then we will all need to vote, and it would all need to be on a reply all response so that it can then become a part of the permanent record. So with that, we'll move on to the consideration of the subdivision committee recommendations. First off, we have 2007, number 57, one-step final plat for Faber Commercial Addition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this item on consent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
do we need to ask if there's anybody in the audience?
I'm sorry. Is there anyone here in the chambers? Thanks. Next case, subdivision 210003, final plat of Dugan West Kellogg Third Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Dugan West Kellogg Commercial Third. Hearing none, we'll take that item on consent. Next, we have subdivision 210012, one-step final plat for Irma Hernandez Edition. That's Irma Hernandez Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Irma Hernandez Edition. Hearing none, we'll take that one on consent. Next, we have sub 210013, one-step final plat for H&H Acres Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? One-step final plat, H&H Acres Edition. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Next, we have sub 210016, one-step final plat, Cedar Dale Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Cedar Dale Edition.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Johnson. I propose 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Joe Johnson, second by Mr. Bill Johnson, so we've got J and J. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our vacation items, we have vacation 2110. It's a city vacation of a portion of a platted setback located at 2124 West Pawnee. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this case on consent. Next, we have vacation 21-00013, city vacation of a platted 35-foot setback located at 1551 and 1501 Southwest Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this item on consent. Moving on, we have vacation 21-0014, city vacation of a portion of a drainage easement located on the east side of Oliver Street, approximately 1/2 mile north of K-96 highway. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? We will take this case on consent. Moving on, we have vacation 21-00015, city vacation of access control along McLean Boulevard, located 600 feet north of Douglas and on the west side of McLean Boulevard. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm tempted to say yes, because I don't want you to have a perfect record here. But no.
Okay, we will hear this case.
No, I don't want to hear it.
He doesn't want to hear it.
Oh, you don't want to hear it? Okay. All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I like your brother better. So is there anyone in the council chambers, almost at Century 2, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this case on consent.
I move to approve agenda items 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and 4.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Florence, to approve the vacation items. Is there anyone on the commission that have any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries, I believe there are 9 of us.
Yes, that's
9-0. Next, we have the public hearing items. We have, the first case is a conditional use 21-00013. Conditional use to allow an accessory apartment located at 4695 North Ridge Road. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? We will hear this case. Next up, we have PUD 21-0003. It's a planned unit development number 84, generally located at 560 North Exposition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Yes, please.
Okay, we will hear this case. Next, we have zoning 21-00012, county zone change from rural residential to SF20 single-family residential, located roughly at 16011 West Shade Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Yes.
Okay. We will hear this case. Next up, we have zoning 21-00013, city zone change from limited commercial to general commercial, located at 4646 West Kellogg. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this on consent. Next, we have zone 21-0014, a city zone change from single-family residential to limited commercial, located at 2202 West 13th. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? And we will hear this case.
Chairman, I would move to approve agenda item 4.4.
Second.
We have a motion to approve agenda item 4.4. Is there anyone on the commission that has a question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. At this point, we will recess the Planning Commission meeting and open up our Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. First item we have is approval of the minutes of our BZA meeting. And I show Commissioners Nix and Hartman to be absent.
Move for approval. Second.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. McKay to approve the minutes. Any questions on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, that was reversed. Motion by Mr. McKay, second by Warren.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
He was close.
So I mean, I was at the right end of the day as down there, so
That's just for the record, make sure we got it right.
there you go. Thank you very much. Let's see, are there any questions on the motion? Any further questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And any abstentions? We have one. So motion carries 8-0-1. We have a BZA case, 21-00013. It's a variance of a property zoned SF5, single-family residential for an LED message board located at 3741 West 15th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
I would like to make one correction in the staff report, but otherwise it's,
Okay. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, or seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, if you want to go ahead and give us the correction.
just in the section on background, in the last paragraph, it talks about the intersection of Bluff Avenue and Kincaid Avenue, which is way on the other side of town. I think there just needs to be some correction there.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, with that correction, do I have a motion?
Move to approve. As amended.
Second.
Okay, it was, the motion was made by Mr. Bill Johnson, second by, Ms. Foster to approve grant the variance. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. At this point, I will close the BZA meeting and reopen the Planning Commission meeting. And our first case will be 2113.
Mr. Chair, do you want to make sure there's an applicant or an agent?
The microphone is not working at the podium.
Do I need to speak louder?
Yeah, is anybody else having difficulty hearing him?
Yeah, this is Con 2021-13.
Okay, thank you.
We're good. Do you want to make sure there's an applicant or agent?
Yes, do we have the applicant here? Conditional use to allow an accessory apartment located at 4695 North Bridge Road. Do we have James or Joyce Ogden or James D. Clark? James and Joyce Ogden or James D. Clark? Are you online virtually?
Mr. Chairman, we're looking over the list and we don't see anyone with those names listed.
What I just like caller?
Yeah, I'll look it up in the case file and I'll call them.
Well, no, I just was wondering if there's like caller 06 or something like that.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, so we'll set this aside.
Is everybody in the audience? Anybody else wants to hear that?
I believe it was
Yeah,
Mr.
we had
Nix who wanted to
somebody,
hear
a
it.
commissioner that wanted to hear it.
Okay.
And is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Okay, hearing none. We'll come back to this.
Okay, I will get in contact with them.
Okay. Next case we have is PUD 210003. I see Mr. Lindeback on virtually, so we know that the agent is here. We could go ahead and have that presented, please.
Kathy Morgan, Senior Planner, Metropolitan Area Planning Department. PUD 210003 is for a property or several lots located between North Exposition and North Dodge. You can see on the screen, your screen, the zoning map. If you will follow along, that one property that's on North Dodge, the northernmost lot that's zoned B multifamily, is not within the boundary of this case. And the applicant owns, can you go to the next slide, the aerial slide? There you go. Okay, so the applicant owns all the properties that are outlined in red. They currently have a therapy business located in that larger building on the north end of the, along Exposition Avenue. And they are requesting a planned unit development. All of those lots, there's B multifamily, SF5, and TF3 among those lots. One of those lots is TF3, the other are zoned SF5, and as you can see on the aerial, on the block facing Dodge, there is a surface parking lot on 3 of those 5 lots. And so the applicant is applying for a planned unit development to be able to expand the associated businesses that may come along with their existing therapy business. They have modeled their PUD based on underlying general office zoning. Go back to the zoning map, or rather go to the zoning map, the larger one that shows the Delano area, if you would, please. There you, yes, that's it. No, next one. Don't we have another one? There's one in the staff report.
That one right there it is.
Okay. Okay, so you can see around it, along Seneca, there are GC and LI zoned lots on both sides of Seneca, and then further up on McLean Boulevard, there are 3 lots. You don't see the third one that's zoned general office, and those have like a podiatrist, beauty salon, a couple of offices in them. So with the review of the planned unit development number 84 that's attached in your staff report, they go through and list what uses are by right and the conditional uses allowed, and these were identified, looked at as how they were presented in the Delano plan as to what is allowed, because the Delano plan was updated in 2019, and they have guidelines that how they want the area to redevelop and where residential is appropriate and where they would like to keep the concentration of businesses. So that was certainly mentioned in the staff report. So there is, as you can see, single-family residential to the west. There's single-family and TF3 to the south, and then you have general commercial to the east, and on the north side is the right-of-way for McLean Boulevard and also the Arkansas River. Along that river, there is access, pedestrian access to bike trails and walking trails. That was another thing that was looked at, was access to public transit and other amenities. And so there's a bus route along McLean. Let's see, with the staff is recommending approval of this application based on the zoning uses and character of the neighborhood. Staff did mention in the report that this does not necessarily meet all of the guidelines of the Delano plan. However, the PUD does allow for continued use for residential and could be developed as multifamily or single-family residential or TF3. The restriction that it would affect nearby properties, there is a large parking lot already on the site. So the impact of parking on the street would be minimal. The pickup and drop-off of the clients occurs in that parking area, and any future development would have to include a parking study for uses on that site. Let's see. The upzone, this is, as I said, this is an upzoning. A planned unit development would be an upzoning from B multifamily, SF5, and TF3. Let's see. As I said, the plan is consistent with the community investments plan. It's in the core area, established central area. The future growth map does show, can you go to the growth map, please? There you go. So the future growth map does show this as being residential, and as I mentioned, the PUD does allow for the residential to remain. Go back to the Delano plan, please. This is a blow-up of the Delano plan, and where you see 3rd Street, there, Dodge and Exposition, this area is right next to that commercial area. It's noted in yellow. So that's where the residential Delano plan recommends residential. There are existing public utilities available, water, sewer. As I said earlier, the transit is available. So the public amenities or utilities are available in this site. And to come back to the planned unit development language on page 7 of your staff report, under screening, or under signage rather, outlined in red is that staff would recommend that it be included that lighted signage be prohibited from facing residential zoning district around that site. And then also under parking, that some kind of bicycle parking be allowed in the development or for convenience. And other than that, staff is in agreement with the PUD language, and I will answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
I was mostly concerned about parking, but you've addressed that, so thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Green, I might mention that this case was heard at DAB 6 last night, and there was a lot of discussion, good discussion, and DAB 6 voted to deny or recommend denial of the application by a vote of 6-3.
You brought up on the parking, the recommendation that bicycle parking be included in the development. And what was the basis for that?
Just the overall bike pedestrian transit plan that we're trying to make the neighborhoods more walkable, more friendly to alternate transportation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Warren?
What was the gist of the discussion at the DAB meeting and that brought about a recommendation for denial? What was their main concern?
Well, we do have a member here that can speak to that, but basically it was the encroachment of the planned unit development into an established neighborhood. There were concerns about parking. There were concerns that the recommendation was made over what the Delano plan, the adopted Delano plan recommended in regard to keeping that zoning single family.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, I know we have the agent online. Mr. Lindeback, if you could state your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
Yes, Brian Lindeback, MKC Engineering, 411 North Webb Road, on behalf of the owner and applicant. Just going to give you a quick presentation, and I'd also like to leave some time for the owners to speak to you a little bit about their operation. As you can tell, this is a PUD. The property is only 1.54 acres. 60% of the property is currently being used by the business there. The remaining property is being used as rental property. They do desire to convert one of the units south of the building and incorporate that into their business. A brief history on the project. This office building at the northwest corner was built in 1952. 52 years ago in 1969. For many years, the building operated providing family and marriage counseling services as well. In 2007-ish, it was acquired by Ember Hope Youthville, and they provided outpatient facilities for mental health and children, foster children, and other residential care. In 1989, there was a variance granted to permit off-street parking on this property. They added 35 parking stalls, which you can see on the map on the east there. And then in 1995, another variance was granted, reducing the building setback along McLean Boulevard from 5 feet down to 1 foot, and from 20 feet down to 5 feet on exposition. And the reason was for parking purposes. That was approved, and they added additional parking stalls. So there was a total of 47 parking stalls at that time. The primary building on the site was acquired by the owners and the applicants in 2015. They've seen steady growth in their business for special needs and therapy business, and they wish to expand their business into the adjoining property to the south, as I stated. They also wish to add parking to the site for their special needs patients. The way it functions is parents, drive up and drop their children off and usually escort them into the building, and therefore, on-street parking isn't as conducive for that sort of thing with young children and so forth. This property was brought to the Development Review Committee, which is operated out of the Planning Department, in December 20th of 2017. It was all recommended unanimously by that Development Review Committee that a PUD be applied for on this property. So the owner has now acquired all the properties for the most part around him on the subject property. And so we've got this case in front of you. As I've stated in the PUD text, this is a general office where it's a transition zoning going from general commercial on the east and single family on the west. We feel a general office is a very appropriate use for that transitional zoning. There's also many other buildings along McLean Boulevard that are in that transition from commercial to or general office to that single family. There's buildings at Elizabeth that are general office zoning as well, and they're multi-story buildings. And then there's also more buildings on Vine Street and McLean, and then another one at Athenan Avenue and McLean. They all are office-related type uses. There's also a large baseball complex, as you know, probably. The West Side Athletic Fields, they contain large parking areas. So again, not necessarily all residential along this corridor of McLean Boulevard. I think it's important to note that this is in the Delano overlay. In fact, we've put that as the number one, parcel, number one general provision is that this plan will conform to the Delano district. The owners wish to continue their business on the site. It's a beautiful location, centrally located for all their customers and their patrons and their patients. We agree with all the staff comments, but in response to the District Advisory Board 6 meeting last night, we asked that if you choose to motion to approve this case, that you delete or remove the following uses from the PUD. We've got a neighborhood swimming pool heliport, hotel and motel, and marine facilities. We'd like to make this as a on the bench change, if that would be acceptable. We've asked this in hopes that will make the case more acceptable. And one thing I'll note is that, another thing I'll note is that the site is generally in compliance with the zoning code as it currently sits. However, there's part of the building that does have SF5 zoning on it, and that part would need to come into compliance. So this is an application that also will help put this property into compliance. And so I think that's important to note. And with that, I'll stand for comments. And but before I do so, I'd like to have the owners speak just a little bit about their business and how it's thrived at this location and how they wish to continue to thrive and provide such wonderful services to our community. And you might make sure you unmute yourself. There you go.
There we go. Okay. So started a clinic for children with special needs 5 years ago in a 3-bedroom house, zoned commercial. Grown tremendously over the years. My job is just to make room for her to expand into. It became evident quickly that we would outgrow this building, and our options are we expand. In planning for that, we purchased a house 2 doors down, a $30,000 house, with the hopes that someday we would remove it and additional parking, and also that we would someday the next door, which we have, and convert that to treatment space as well, specifically speech therapy, and if we're unable to continue in this location, it will definitely be a hardship. Most of this block is commercially used. Some of the houses we have no intention of ever being anything but rental houses. We try to keep them maintained to a level above the norm of red. I sweep the entire block in the street a couple times a year. It's a source of pride for us. So, Chris, would you like to say anything about what we do here?
Sure. So yes, we've been in that particular building for 5 years. I started it with just me and 10 children 4 years before that. And we see children with special needs. We provide physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. And we have grown by leaps and bounds. 5 years ago, I think we were seeing about 80 children a week. We are currently at around 300 children a week, and we are in a growth spurt. So as has been mentioned, to expand into that, it's currently a duplex, but we would like to have we would like to connect the two buildings, our current residential or the current commercial building, and expand into that building next to it so that we can continue to add treatment spaces. And as David mentioned, the one next to that, we wanted to convert into parking precisely for the reason of keeping cars off of the street. And so far, we haven't had any issues with the neighbors with parking on the street because we are able to contain it into the parking lots. David, did you want me to add anything to that?
No, I appreciate that. That's great. Anything else, Brian?
No, I think that'll cover it for now. I think, we'll certainly stand for any questions that you may have.
Yes, Mr. Warren and then Mr. McKay.
Now, Brian, you missed a few items that were allowed by right that you were willing to take off: the neighborhood swimming pool, the heliport. What was the other? Was there another one?
Yes, I'd like to get rid of neighborhood swimming pool, heliport, hotel motel, and the marine facility that are allowed by right under general office zoning. We feel those are really just not really compatible for our PUD at this time. And so we just think that originally we had just listed things that were allowed by GO, but I think it could make it a little more palatable for the district advisory board members and the neighbors as a whole, just to know that those uses are restricted and no longer allowed.
Thank you.
Mr. McKay?
I'd like to take that one step forward. Would you be willing to say your PUD would be for specific use? Because in your PUD purpose, you've got about 4 or 5 sentences here of what's been happening there. Would you use that as the PUD guidelines rather than use the general overall PUD guidelines or uses?
Yeah, the PUD statement does tell you, kind of give guidance to what would be allowed here. And generally, we want, the things that we need are for medical office. We definitely need the potential for office. We definitely need the potential for residential. We do have residential activities on the property. And we want there to be the potential for redevelopment of a mixed use where perhaps there would be a building with office and residential combined. So those are the general things that we anticipate as the owners have conveyed to me, their goals and wishes for the property. But we try to keep it as basic as possible, following what was in the general office criteria, so that we can match with what's been going on along the corridor already.
But there's a lot more uses than what you just said permitted if we zone this the way you want it done, or the PUD's approved. A lot more uses than just the 3 or 4 you took off.
There's a few more uses, but generally those are, we'd be certainly open to other restrictions, but I think what's proposed would be appropriate for the area, especially given the fact that we're so close to a commercial hub at the intersection of McLean and Seneca.
So you're saying then that your purpose is to do this, but in case something should come along, you might want to go to commercial development rather than from the basic use that you're talking about here?
No, what I'm saying is that our base zoning is in our PUD is GO, general office. And I've listed all of the uses that are allowed in the general office district, except for the ones that have been restricted by the Delano plan. And so what you see in the land uses section, item 2, those are all specific uses that are currently restricted or allowed in the Delano and general office area. So I think, for example, there's a university and college. I mean, if you want us to delete university and college, we could certainly do that. But, just keeping it very consistent with what the general office zoning classification was the goal, just for the ease of staff, long-term administering the enforcement of the general office zoning classification.
But what I'm trying to say to you is this: is the DAB turned it down. So what I'm trying to do is get a neutral ground here that would ease it up for the DAB. So if you put in there the 4 or 5 uses that you got in these 2 or 3 sentences in your purpose, as well as single family, that might soften it to the point where we might be able to look at it a little different than with all those other policies, other deals in it.
Yeah, thank you. That was one of the reasons why we're suggesting that we delete some of those uses now. For example, the hotel was actually mentioned at the DAB meeting. They didn't seem to like that. So we've again asked that we go ahead and just remove that, and we added these other uses as well. But I think the rest of the uses would be consistent with the zoning character in the area.
Well, I still think rather than delete what the overall view there that you can put in there, be positive and say this is what we're going to do with this PUD piece of ground, and give yourself a little flexibility instead of saying, well, you've eliminated 4 out of about 10 or 15 things there, rather than say this is what we're going to do with the ground. Because in your PUD you're saying this is what we're doing. That's all I'm trying to say to you, is that by not making it specific, the PUD is specifically for this is what the use of the property is going to be, planned unit development. That's just my comments.
Are there any other questions from the commission for the agent or the applicant? I have just one general question. I know that there is residential, obviously part of this request includes residential, but the adjacent residential to the west and in the general area, what kinds of, have there been any issues or problems or concerns that have been brought up by the nearby residences with what is going on at this facility?
I have not heard of any specific issues from the owner. They're online here, so let's let them speak to those if they've heard any.
Actually, when the signs came up notifying the possible zoning change, I had a couple of my neighbors. One of them owns three. Owns a lot of rental properties. He has three across the street. He called me specifically, asked if we had land. He said, "Yeah, that sounded like what we ought to be able to do with the property. Bring them together under one umbrella." I was doing some yard work. One of the homeowners came across to ask me what was going on, and I explained that specifically we wanted to add some parking to prevent any of our people from ever having to park on the street. And he appreciated that, and he mentioned that I embarrassed him a little bit because I kept my side of the street so clean. It makes me want to go across and help him out. But so our neighbors have been so far pretty supportive of what we do. Some of them, once they understand our mission to help as many kids with special needs as possible, they get behind us. But we don't make it hard for them to get behind us. We're very, very neat. We try not to have anybody park on the street. No loud noises, just no disturbances whatsoever. So I think we're model neighbors, and we really want to uplift this neighborhood. The current residential properties were allowed to deteriorate to terrible levels through just landlords. We're kind of waiting to see what happens here to be sure that we're really vested in this neighborhood. But all of these houses need some pretty major rehabbing, which we definitely will do because we want to uplift the flavor of this block and hopefully in turn the rest of the neighborhood. There's someone rehabbing a duplex. He was very excited about what we're doing. We're very excited about what he's doing, totally remodeling his house. Money coming into the neighborhood is fantastic. Just fixing things up, polishing things. It just uplifts everybody.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation at this point, Mr. Lindeback?
Yes. Yep. I think we're just really hoping that we'll have support so we can continue on and provide these valuable services to the community.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone, are there any further questions from the commission? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to, if you could please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Commission. My name is Vincent Hancock. I live at 406 South Vine. I serve as the Vice President of the Delano Neighborhood Association. While these comments are not intended to represent the association as a whole, we've had individuals who live within the area who got those letters who had asked for me to share on their behalf. So a little bit more on that later. And because I am sharing on behalf of other people, I know you guys have the opportunity to grant me a couple of additional minutes. That may be necessary. I ask for you to consider that possibility. From one of the neighbors down the street who couldn't be here today because she has no access to a computer. She gave me a handwritten letter and asked me to share this with you. Her name is Mary Oakes. She lives on Dodge Street. It seems people with money and influence are always wanting to change our neighborhood with no consideration being given to the effect that it will have on the residents. We have families with children that still attend school. The street already has become a speed zone. I don't know how many times I've tried to back out of my driveway only to have to pull back in, and this is becoming a common occurrence. I can only imagine how much more of a problem your proposal will be. What you're planning for your good is only a detriment for us. So those were her words. Getting into a little bit more generic, I thank you, Commissioner McKay, for catching on to the fact that the proposal has a lot of things that don't seem to be in character with what the applicant has stated are their purposes for this. When we first got wind of this, it was going to be on the agenda for last month's meeting for you guys. It was intended as Central Business District. Well, that got yanked right before it made your agenda, but it got yanked in such an irresponsible way that staff still sent out the letters to the neighbors, and they arrived sometimes on Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday. As this body was meeting last month, some of these neighbors were getting notice that, oh, by the way, this is going to go into Central Business District. Staff should have never sent those letters. There was a massive miscommunication somewhere in there, and obviously it's been cleared up now because that particular homeowner has had a chance to talk with the applicant, and a lot of miscommunication happened just because some I's weren't crossed, or dotted and some T's weren't crossed. When I first learned about it being as a CBD, I replied to several people. And the agent, Brian, called me the next morning. He says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this. I said, I'd love to as well. However, I'm nobody special. And we invited them to come to our neighborhood association meeting and say, please share it with several people. That was an opportunity for April. It was an opportunity for May. They declined. They never requested to be placed on our agenda. So until last night, we didn't actually know what this was because of all the generalities in the wording of the application. Vague descriptions such as long-term redevelopment, maximum flexibility with property development standards, intended to allow for the property to develop into a more convenient mixed-use development, blah, de, blah. Nothing specific. No site plan and no intention of what they were planning on doing. On a primary basis, I do encourage you as a body to remember that the Wichita City Council, the Sedgwick County Commission, and this body all approved the 2019 neighborhood plan, which varies.
Mr. Hancock, your time is up at this point.
Okay.
Can you wrap up your comments in 1 more minute?
In 1 more minute, I can.
Okay, thank
Our
you.
neighborhood plan very clearly showed that we love to have commercial development up and down Seneca, east and west on Douglas from the river to Vine Street. And we would ask that all of the time and effort that work into having the neighborhood plan put together be honored. If you would choose not to honor that, we're setting a bad precedent. We wouldn't appreciate that. But I say, agreeing with both Commissioner McKay and the agent, let's simplify the allowed uses that would normally be allowed under GO, and let's just change it to single-family, duplex, multifamily, medical service, and office. Let's let their word be their bond, and if those are the true intended uses of this property, let's simplify it to just that. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Do we have any questions of the speaker? The only question
I
I
have
have.
a question. Excuse me.
Ms. Dickinson? Ms. Dickinson,
Yes.
it's not your turn yet.
Okay,
Not your time.
my apologies.
We'll go back to the agent or you, the applicant, for rebuttal once everyone has spoken that wants to speak at this point. Okay? Okay. I just had one question. The general office zoning district and the Delano neighborhood overlay district, are these uses that are listed, are those approved in the Delano overlay district?
They're allowed in a general office zoning area.
Okay.
But by the planned uses for the neighborhood, and you guys are completely familiar with zoning, it's a city's right to say, we want to encourage business development here, we want to encourage manufacturing over here, and the plan that this body approved said this is to be a residential area. And I will say on behalf of the applicant They have been great neighbors. No one said anything about them. They exercised poor judgment in a particular contractor who did something illegal, but other than that, everybody has said that they do love them. So we do appreciate them as neighbors.
I think that can happen to all of us at some time.
Yes, it happens.
Yeah. Any other questions for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to provide testimony for or against this case? Hearing none, we'll return the discussion back to the agent or applicant, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, Brian Lindeback. I'd like to reserve some time here for Miss Dickinson to speak, but I want to point out on this map that's on your screen that on the Dodge side of this property does have commercial zoning suggested. It also has residential property suggested. So this plan is calling for both, for their ownership. It's calling for both mixed uses here, if you read into that. So I just want to point that out, and then I'll reserve any additional time for questions, as well as Dr. Chris to speak.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dickinson, you've got about a minute and a half left if you wanted to state anything.
I would have loved to have been a part of the agenda for that meeting. I was unaware of it, but I would have been very happy to share our plans for the property and to just explain what we are intending or hoping to do by expanding into the next door property. And then depending on how this goes, depending on what to do with those little bitty houses that were in disrepair and definitely not in good shape. And David has been very much wanting to turn them and increase the value. So I would like them to be cute little cottages that Hansel and Gretel would like to visit, but that's neither here nor there. But that's kind of the intention, is to keep this just very quaint and cute and serving these children and their families.
Okay. Brian, did you want to wrap up? I think you've got about 20 seconds left.
I think looking for support, and this is a reasonable request given its position in it as far as the zoning in nearby. We could certainly talk about reduced uses, but we think that what we've presented is appropriate.
Okay. Any other questions for the agent or applicant from the commission? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Can I ask a question of staff?
Sure.
The suggestion that the allowed uses by right be reduced to basically residential and medical service office general, the suggestion was made that that would make it more difficult or less difficult for staff to enforce the PUD. Can one of you address what staff thinks about reducing the allowed uses by right? Would it make it harder to enforce the PUD?
I understood, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
By identifying specifically the allowed uses that they've listed here, that assists us with enforcing what the PUD allows, so that if something outside this comes up, then they would have to come back for an amendment to the PUD, and it would go through another public hearing process like what we're doing now.
But if we reduced the allowed uses by right, would that make it more difficult for you to enforce?
No, the applicant would have to agree to those changes that you request to be removed.
Mr. Warren?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, and then if there's a second, I'll have some comments. But I would move to approve the application as presented with the exception in item 2, land uses, subparagraph I, that we eliminate neighborhood swimming pools, heliport, hotel, motel, and marine facility.
I'll second that.
My comments for this are, I'm looking at the remaining items that are on the list. Many of them are cousins to the actual use that is going on right now that would be very similar. Nursing homes, not animal care, but a funeral home, medical service. There are things that very likely could be used that would not change the nature of the neighborhood in this situation. Trying to make this, I think if we eliminate it down to just to what's being used today, then that opens up the door, just like I said, it would be difficult at another point. You gotta go through the whole process again. So I think limiting in a way to protect the neighborhood, but not so tight that you can't do anything in the future is a problem. So I would think that what we have here is good. The neighborhood has said the things that specifically they're concerned about. If we eliminate those, that we ought to be good.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Okay.
I would like to make a substitute motion that we approve this subject to a list of what we talked about earlier, the 4 or 5 items that deals with medical or deals with, and I put down single-family housing, medical offices, medical facility, duplexes, and parking for those facilities. And there might be, you know, one or more, but rather than say this specifically, have the applicant say, this is what I'm trying to get away, let's don't take away what's basically there. Let's say this is what the use is gonna be. That's what planned unit development is all about. And if it changes, it's gotta come back in. That's just the whole idea of having this PUD. So, that's my motion.
Second?
And I seconded it.
Okay, we've got a substitute motion by Mr. McKay, and it was seconded by Joe Johnson.
Right.
Any discussion on the substitute motion? Yes, Mr. Nix.
So, John, we have 6 items, is that what you listed?
Well,
mean,
I
you need to be
mentioned 4 or
specific.
5, the gentleman read a list of that, and all I'm saying is that we get with the applicant, agree to that list, and not take away from the list, but this is the list we're gonna use.
They were single-family, duplex, multifamily, medical service, office general, and parking area.
Yes. That's
Basically
what I
what
understand.
Right.
Mr. Warren?
I'm gonna list some things that I think could go along without changing the nature, like group home or group residence, church of worship, daycare, nursing home. Those are, I'm having a hard time understanding why we would eliminate those from the possibility.
Well, number one, you have a facility that's presently there, and what you're talking about, I doubt very seriously if there's enough room there to do all the things you're talking about wanting to do. Nursing home, group homes, to begin with, land use, there's not enough land there to do more than what's already there, basically, to begin with. So that's the reason why I'm saying, we're not talking about a big piece of ground, we're talking about a small piece of ground. I was just trying to say it's more compatible to the neighborhood from both sides, the commercial side, the office side, and the residential. That's all I'm trying to say.
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Nix?
So I'm wondering if that makes it more palatable to the Delano group by limiting to those. It sounds like it does, to me. It sounds like what the gentleman was talking about, and would be more acceptable.
Can we add church?
Well, again, you're going back to church. You don't put a church on a 250-foot lots by 140.
Possibly.
The other, I guess the thing that I see is, yes, at this point, we have 5 residential lots, and then the rest of this is general office, or it's zoned B. So they could, at some point down the road, tear down all of the residential structures that they've got there, and then they would be able to build anything that was within the confines of the PUD that could be 60 feet tall, and it could be a 4 or 5 story structure, and they could have anything in that facility that would fall within the guidelines of what's allowed in the Delano neighborhood overlay district.
Building requirements would stop a 6-story building from going in there.
I'm sorry?
Building requirements, restrictions would stop some of those things you're talking about.
Well, yeah, I know under number 3, it does show a 60 feet maximum height for a building in this, in the PUD. Under item 3, the last, next to the last
Well, the way I understood
item
it,
there is maximum height.
the way I understood it, the people made the comment, they're using their present facility, they're gonna use the first house to the south of the big building to expand into now. That only leaves 2 houses on the south and 1 on the, there's 3 houses to be left, because the rest of it's all parking lot. If you look at the overview, aerial view, it's basically all parking lot. So,
I just think that creates a problem down the line, so I'll be opposed.
that's fine.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes.
Just a point of
Mr. Waddle?
clarification on the substitute motion. Could you please go through that list again of which uses would be allowed?
Do you want me to list them? I wrote them down.
Yeah.
Single family, duplex, multifamily, medical service, office general, and parking area commercial.
And one quick note on that is I have learned from staff that if single family is included, we will need to have group home included. It's a legal requirement.
Yeah, I understand.
If I could speak, I'd like to weigh in a little bit here, if I could.
I would ask what his concerns are.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I think that's a good list. I would like to add to it daycare. Obviously, these are children. I think daycare would be a very, very compatible use for the operations that they're doing. And then I believe also the personal improvement services would be appropriate, as well as personal care services. I think those are all compatible uses, as well as the accessory apartment. There could certainly be an accessory apartment here, given its proximity to downtown.
We're getting closer to where I can go along.
Is that, on the substitute motion, do you find those 3
Well, there's group home,
accessory
daycare,
apartments, and daycare?
Personal care.
And
Personal
personal
improvement
care.
service, right?
Do you
why
like
the
the whole
accessory
list?
apartment? Why do you need accessory apartment?
Depending on the services that they may offer through the medical services, they might have a need to have someone on site.
You've already got it.
Just that, it gives the flexibility that,
I mean, you already got the buildings and stuff that's already there. You just utilize what you have. It doesn't say that, I'm not giving you those 3 houses have to be used for a specific thing. just my opinion. And the other two, I don't mind at all. I agree.
All right, so, where are we standing on the substitute motion? The person that made the motion is willing to add daycare, group residence, was that the other one? Ms. Foster?
Group home.
Group home.
Group home, daycare, and not the accessory apartment or the accessory apartment?
I don't think it's necessary. but-
Okay, so you're going to add the group home and the daycare, and not the personal improvement.
The personal care services, he wanted, was that not
Yes.
what, that's what I have
Personal
down?
services.
Personal care
Care
services.
services and
Explain
personal
what personal
improvement.
care services you're talking about. I was talking about with, I'm sitting here negotiating back and forth, and I'll just make a motion for, because it's a land use issue, not an operational issue. And if this,
If we don't put it in there, then they're gonna look at this, and we can't do that, and that's something that
now what,
I see that as similar to what's going on now,
that's my point.
yeah. But you're gonna eliminate that possibility if we don't
No, you
put personal
don't.
service in the motion.
Talking about medical, it's part of the medical and stuff and everything to begin with.
Well, medical service isn't allowed here. You haven't added that to the motion, medical service.
Read the list again.
Okay, what I have down is SF5, group home, duplex, multifamily, office general, ancillary parking, daycare, personal care services. And that's what I have, and I didn't know if I also heard personal improvement services, but those two things do not, they're separate definition and would not be included under medical services.
Okay, those are the uses that you are, including in your substitute motion, Mr. McKay?
Well, I'm kind of confused at this point in time, because I started off with 5 and now we're up to 9. So I don't know if I am or not.
Yes, Mr. Johnson?
We keep talking about this, how close are we getting to the original motion?
Yeah.
What are we really eliminating?
Quite a
Not a
bit.
hell of a lot of anything.
So I think at this point, the items that you have listed for inclusion in the substitute motion, and this person who Ms. Fox, you seconded the motion, Ms. Foster, you seconded the motion, are you okay with
Yes.
that?
No, Joe did.
What?
Joe
Oh,
Johnson.
Joe, I'm sorry,
seconded.
Joe, you were the second. Do you agree with
And
that?
I'm okay. As long as it covers medical to the extent we need it.
So you don't second the motion now? Yes, Mr. Wadle.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I hate to add one more thing, but I did want, as Mr. Joe Johnson had brought up, it was brought to my attention that medical services would need to be included in the list because that's the definition of what they're currently doing at the site right now.
And my motion was the same.
Right.
That was included. That's,
Okay, and clarification was that was included in the original substitution motion.
Okay,
And I agree with the substitute motion
okay.
wording.
All right. So are there any other questions on the substitute motion from the commission? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call on the substitute motion. I'll wait for you to be ready. Okay, all those in favor, say aye on the roll call.
All right, thank you, sir. Green,
Nay.
Bill Johnson,
Nay.
McKay,
yay.
Gross, is not here. Fox, not here. Dool,
Aye.
Blick, not here. Nix,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Warren
Nay.
Joe Johnson.
Aye.
Miles.
Aye.
Hartman. Not here. Okay. And Florence.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have 7 in favor of it. And 3 noes.
Motion carries.
Question?
Yes, Mr. Warren?
I assume that this requires the consent of the applicant? They have to agree with that?
If they want their zoning, they don't. Yeah.
That's yeah, if they want to go forward with the zoning, that's what you're recommending.
Thank you.
It will go to city council for final action.
Okay.
They don't have to tell us now.
I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry, Joe?
They don't need to tell us
No.
at this time, do they?
No.
No. Okay. Yes, Mr. Wadle?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to give you all an update that we have reached out to the applicant and the agent from the first case that was, that for the sake of this meeting, you decided to move on to the second item. We have not heard back from them, but I want to let you know that we're going to continue to call them and see if we can get in touch.
Okay, so we're still out there. Okay, moving on to our next case. Do we have the agent or applicant here for zoning case 21-00012?
Yes, I'm Dan Garber on behalf of John and Audrey Roberts.
Okay.
Address is 544 West Douglas.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you were online before we heard the case and then opened the meeting up and you not being there. So, thank you, and we'll get back with you. Okay. Mr. Zevenbergen.
Okay. Zone 2021-14, the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5, single-family residential, to, oh wait, this is zone 12. I apologize, that's Kathy's case. I'm
Kathy.
one ahead. Never mind. I forgot we were hearing this one. Just kidding.
Which one are we on?
You just wanted to be done.
That was going
Agenda item
to 12.
You were just testing me to see if I could say your last name properly, right?
We were just seeing if you were paying attention. Okay, Zone 12. This is in association with the Roberts addition. It is, can you go to the next slide? Right now it's ag land. As you can see on the east side of the screen there, that is a rural residential subdivision. Right now, Shade Street goes into Reese Road, and then Reese Road continues up to 4th Street. Going to rural residential would allow the development lots to be less than 2 acres, and it would allow about, let's see, I don't know if I put that in there. I'm sorry. I wasn't quite ready for this when you jumped from Philip. It would increase the number of lots from 20 to 35 lots, from going to what it's zoned right now as rural residential to SF5. They would be allowed to have 35 lots. The current infrastructure would have to be done. There's no city water, or it would have to be based on the rural water district if they can support that, and it would have to be an on-site sewerage system. I had no phone calls about this zone change. When I went out to take the pictures, the signs were up. So there was notification as well as the neighborhood already knowing about this because of the platting process. Go to the next picture, please. As you can see by the future growth map, it's new residential, so it's within the community investment plan recommendations. There is single-family residential subdivision to the south. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah, the next slide. Okay, so this is looking east at the site. This is that northern, as you can see on the little site locator. This is that point as to where the subdivision would be able to get out on 167th Street. Go to next. This is looking back onto that's the undeveloped site where the subdivision, the zoning would occur next. This is from the Shade Street, looking west, southwest toward the proposed site. Next. This is looking northwest toward 167th Street. Next. This is the Roberts home that goes off right there at the end of the Shade Street cul-de-sac, just to the south. Next. And this is looking more southwest from that gravel road that goes back to the Roberts residence. Next. And this is northeast. I'm sorry, that's an incorrect direction. This is north, basically looking north along that west property line. Next. Staff would recommend that the zone change from rural residential to SF20 be approved. It's in concert with what's developing out there. You have SF5 to the south of this. This is going to SF20, and then it goes on to larger lots with rural residential. And it does conform with the community investments plan and the urban growth area for municipal consideration for expansion of utility services at the time demand would be appropriate for that. So staff is recommending approval of the requested zone change.
Any questions for staff? Yes, Ms. Foster.
I have 3 concerns, 2 of them simple and one I'm not sure is our job, but on the plat map to the south, there appears to be a road connection or traffic way to this future development, which is currently not there. Am I reading that correctly, or is that like a utility easement?
No, that is correct, but that hasn't been, that's a platting issue that has not been determined at this point. So really the zone change is independent of that.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's one. Second, have these people signed a waiver of annexation, or can we ask that they do so? There was something in the report that they're not.
You know what, I'm
annexation?
gonna let the county attorney answer that. Or Neil.
Neil's here. Got a new title.
Ask for a raise.
When this plat was submitted, I asked them if they were going to annex, since the site does adjoin city property. Normally, plats are annexed normally the property is annexed with the plat. In this case, I was informed up front they have no desire to annex the property.
Can we ask them for a waiver at least for future annexation? Should the city decide to annex at some point?
No protest for annexation.
Yeah, I'm not sure the terminology, but I think you know what I'm asking, yeah. I don't want this to end up to be a little island with Wichita surrounding it of not annexed land.
As I recall, I don't have the staff report with me. As I recall, with the plat, Public Works did request a no protest for future water and sewer. So that is part of the plat approval, if I recall correctly.
Okay, thank you. The third item is the sewage, on-site sewage. This is 65 acres with 35 lots. We're looking at what, 35 sewage lagoons on 65 acres?
Well, it wouldn't be a lagoon, and that would be determined. They would have to go through the process with Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department to evaluate what kind of sewerage they have to provide, whether it be a septic system, or we've had other alternatives in different SF20 developments. So that would be part of getting their building permit.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Bill Johnson.
Kathy, didn't we hear this same application with larger lots at one point?
Well, not this zoning application. As I recall in this, looking at the staff report information, the applicant had submitted a plat for, I think, rural residential lots. That's why we're going from the 20 to the increase to 30 lots. And at the time that they were considering this, the subdivision committee requested that they come back with a zone change and to consider changing it to SF20. Is that correct, Neil? Yes. So it's never been, the zoning part of this has never been presented. It's just the platting process.
And we felt like we wanted smaller lots. Now we got smaller lots, and we're concerned about too many lagoons. So I guess I don't want to get a piece of property I can't do nothing on.
I'm new here. Give me a break.
Any other questions for staff from the commission? Hearing none. Thank you, Kathy. And I know that the agent is online, so Mr. Garber, if you could state your name and address for the record, and you've got 10 minutes.
My name is Dan Garber with Garber Surveying Service. We're located at 544 West Douglas in Wichita. And I represent John and Audrey Roberts on this case. The staff report is correct. We submitted a sketch plan originally to the subdivision committee, and it was rural residential lots, 2 to 5 acres, similar to the property to the east of the subdivision. And because it fell within the comprehensive zone growth area, they asked that we come back, adjust the lot sizes, and change to an SF20 zone, so that we had, they wanted 40 lots. We made it up to 35, with the lots being approximately just over 1 acre average. We brought that sketch plan back to the subdivision committee, and they approved that. And so we went forward with the preliminary plat, and that's been approved. So now that that was approved, we're proceeding with the zoning at their recommendation to SF20. We agree with the staff report. We will move forward with application for rural water, and the county has been out, but they will continue to look at each of the areas and each of the lots, whether they can use septic lateral fields or lagoons. I think that's all I have. I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Are there any questions for the agent in the commission? Hearing none, we'll open it up for comment from the public. Is there anyone in the council chambers that wants to address this item? Seeing none. Is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this item? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Move to approve for staff comments.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Bill Johnson to approve for staff comment, and the second was Mr. McKay. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to possibly our
Excuse
last
me.
case, but it may be our
Excuse
next to
me.
last.
I think we were having trouble with our speaker. Can we speak? This is from the neighborhood. Can we speak momentarily, please?
Well, I have to look for the attorney to give me an answer.
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. Certainly, Jeff Van Zandt, if you've dealt with this differently, then by all means hop in. But my opinion at this point is that you have made your formal recommendation at this point, so I think the action is closed.
Excuse me, but gentlemen, this is kind of, new technology. This is not, if we were in person, that would be one thing, but I'm sure you could, allow some grace here trying to figure this new computer system out, if you would, please.
Mr. Warren, did you have a comment, or Mr. McKay?
Well, we've got to figure out a way to hear if we can. When you're dealing with technology, somebody wanted to speak and for either their equipment or our equipment didn't allow that. We can hear them. I assume that we have the right to reconsider a vote if we want to from the floor. I don't know what the legal ramifications are, what we can do from that standpoint, but we've got a situation that I would hate to say that we did something and we didn't hear somebody because we didn't allow technology to get in the way. We've got to figure out a way to do this.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Warren, this is a county deal, so it will go in front of the county commission, won't it?
Yes, it will.
And it will be heard by the county
It'll be heard.
commission.
There's a problem I got with back opening it up, to say the applicant's already got off, and he won't be able to respond back.
I bet he's there. Well, maybe not.
Mr. McKay?
I believe he's still on.
I'm still here.
When we heard this preliminary plat, most of the people to the east in that subdivision talked to the subdivision on this issue already.
True.
And
I know the primary concern was the connection between this plat and the adjoining plat to the east. And this discussion today is about land use, not the platting of the property, which would bring in the discussion on the connection between this property and the property to the east. I know that staff is they're huddling up, and Mr. Wadle's got an answer.
Yeah, just one point of clarification, and thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. But do want to let you know that the county commission would hear this case if, what depends is whether it would be consent or whether it would be a non-consent item, and it would be non-consent if there's a protest that's submitted on the case. So that's what would depend. That would be the thing that would determine whether or not it would be on a county consent or non-consent agenda.
Mr. Van Zant's trying to get your attention.
It's in the county.
It's in the county. And we have a county attorney here.
Yeah, I would certainly like for Mr. Van Zandt's opinion, though, if he does have one on adverse, on a different approach.
Jeff, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Telephone.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, you may want to call in if that's,
It indicates he's muted.
well, we have a green microphone on our end, meaning he's unmuted according to the system, but it is ironic given the circumstances.
Yes, it is, very.
I'm not talking about using the fact that the equipment is.
His headphones may not be plugged in well.
Oh,
7, 8 people.
he's calling me directly on my cell phone.
Subdivision.
Okay.
So that's 40.
Hey, Jeff.
She was, yeah. You know, told me this. Let him go through the process, let him do the.
Yeah.
There would have to be a motion made to set aside the previous motion for the purpose of allowing the public to speak, and then they would go back and redo it again. They'd have to do it by way of a motion to set aside the previous motion.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay.
Okay,
Kirk Sponsel, again, Assistant County Counselor. In conferring with Jeff Van Zandt, he believes that there is an opportunity for the commission to hear it, but that process would be they would have to make a motion to essentially
Set aside.
set aside the prior motion, and that would give them opportunity to hear any outside opinions on the case.
okay.
Chairman, I would move to set aside the previous action.
Do I have a second? I'll go ahead and second the motion. All those in favor of setting aside our previous action, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. This is for the motion to set aside the previous action on this item. Green,
Aye.
Bill Johnson,
Nay.
McKay,
Nay.
Gross is not here, Fox is not here, Dool,
Nay.
Blick is not here, Nix,
Nay.
Foster,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Joe Johnson,
Nay.
Did he say nay?
that was a nay, correct, sir?
Correct.
Yes.
Miles
Aye.
and Florence.
Nay.
And I would note that Hartman is not here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against.
Okay, so, next item before the commission, will be.
Chairman, the lady that was there, you might
Oh.
repeat what the attorney said about with a petition, they can still be
Yeah.
heard at the county commission.
Yeah,
Yes, after today's meeting, there's a 14-day protest petition, or protest period. You may either contact me or by phone, or you can email me, and I can send you that protest petition. It would need to be signed by the property owners of the lots, so you could have your neighbors put one in, but it needs to have the signatures of the property owners in order to be considered a valid protest.
Okay.
And those,
Ms. Greenwell?
and those would be submitted to the county clerk.
Yes, and those would be submitted to the county clerk, so that the deadline for the protest period ends on May 6th at 5 p.m.
Okay. All right. Moving on to our, maybe next to the last case, or it could be our last case. 4.1 around.
Mr. Chairman, just an update on what was originally the first case on the public agenda, public hearing agenda. I was able to speak to the agent, Mr. Jim Clark, I believe, and he said that he was going to try and connect. If I could, sir, I'd like to see if he is online.
Okay. Then Mr. Clark, are you online?
Hear me?
That's you? Okay. We're going to go ahead and hear your case. Please stay online, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak when it's your turn. So it looks like we have Philip up here to.
Yeah, so we are doing Con 2021-13. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to bring the property into compliance with the Unified Zoning Code. The applicant is requesting the conditional use for an accessory apartment on a property located at 4695 North Ridge Road, which is north of West 45th Street on the west side of North Ridge Road, as you can see on the map in front of you. The property is zone SF20, single-family residential, and accessory apartments are permitted by conditional use. The property is 5.8 acres in size. An existing detached garage was converted into an accessory apartment, and so it has a single-family home. There's a detached garage that the accessory apartment is inside, as well as they're building an additional detached garage. So there's two accessory structures on the property as well. All the properties were built with building permits and comply with setbacks. As we go through the pictures at the end, you'll see that the accessory dwelling does comply with or fit the character with the original building, like they were designed the same. They basically are very much in harmony with each other, which is one of the supplementary use regulations for accessory apartments. More on those supplementary use regulations, which are found in section D or 3D6A. They state that the property can only have one accessory apartment on a single lot with single-family dwelling. As well, it can be as part of the main dwelling, or it can be detached from the main dwelling. Number two, the appearance of the accessory apartment will be compatible with the main dwelling or the character of the neighborhood, which I already said it does. The accessory apartment will remain accessory and under the same ownership as the principal single-family dwelling, and the ownership shall not be divided or sold into condominium. And number four, the water and sewer services provided have to remain under the same account as well. Those that are in the county, whether it's well service or septic or lagoons, they just have to be tied into the same system. A little bit different there. Properties surrounding this, as you can see on the map in front of you, are all zone SF20, single-family residential. The majority of them are single-family residences. There are also agricultural land. Property to the west does have two conditional uses on it that were established in 1982 for employee recreation park, as well as outdoor recreation and entertainment. This land was recently platted in 2019. Northridge Road is a paved 4-lane arterial with curbs and gutters. Water and sewer are provided on site and with well water and septic system. If we didn't catch before, this case is out in Sedgwick County. The comprehensive plan identifies the area for new employment on the future growth map. However, the surrounding area is established with rural scale single-family residential development. So this type of development is very much in kind with what's already going on there. Any future commercial development would likely occur further south along the arterial intersection at 45th and Ridge. Based on that, staff is recommending approval, subject to the following conditions. Typically, they're the ones that we kind of just restate what the supplementary use regulations are, that it is to remain accessory to the principal structure, that on-site water and wastewater services are in compliance with the Sedgwick County Sanitation Code. All the other utilities, such as electric, gas, telephone, or cable TV, can be provided separately if they wanted. The applicant shall obtain any applicable permits, including building, health, and zoning, and go through the MAPCD process if they already have not done so. Like I said, looking up kind of the records on the property, it appears that they were built, and that really, I think just a kitchen was added, like a full kitchen was added to the first detached garage, which also brings it into the accessory dwelling category. Development and maintenance of the site shall be in conformance with the approved site plan, and the zoning administrator, if they find violation of it, can always have the conditional use revoked in due time. Findings for our recommendation, we talked about the zoning and character of the neighborhood. You have large lot single-family development with accessory structures. They happen to have this accessory dwelling in one of their accessory structures. It fits with how the property is currently zoned, and removal of these restrictions really should not have any detrimental impacts on the area. There also should be no detrimental impacts on public roads or water and sewer services. If you want to flip through, we can get to the site plan and then go through pictures of the site. The writing's a little upside down, but it says accessory apartment. You can see here there's a main dwelling closest to the street. The accessory apartment is in what's highlighted in blue. It's a detached garage that has a full kitchen. So again, by definition, it moves it into the dwelling category. And then they're currently building the detached garage to the west behind where the dwelling unit is. We can go through some pictures real quick. This is the garage that the dwelling unit is going to be in. You can see when I was there, they were paving the extension of the driveway to the pad in the back for the new garage. Next photo. This is looking from Ridge. You can see the main dwelling, and then the building to the left is that same one where the accessory dwelling unit will be. Next one. This is looking north on Ridge Road. You can see it's the 4-lane, and there's residential development around there. Next one's probably looking southeast. Go next slide. This is looking due east across the street with residential structures and accessory structures. Next picture. Looking southeast along Ridge Road. Next. Just looking at it in the dwelling units that's directly south of the property. I think the last one is looking due south. If you want to go to the next slide. Oh, this is looking to the northwest. Again, more residential structures. And the last one is looking due south. The neighbor has an accessory structure near the property line as well. Again, this property adheres with all applicable setbacks. This will be going to Citizens Advisory Board 4 in May. We're kind of in an awkward submittal period for this one where it wasn't able to go before, and it's a little bit later in terms of going after when they only have once a month meetings. So I don't have any information from them. I have not received any phone calls or emails about this case, and I can stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Hearing none. Is it the agent or the applicant that's on? The agent, Mr. Clark, is that?
Mr. Jim Clark, are you there, sir?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear
Mr.
me?
Clark, you can state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
My name is James D. Clark. I am representing as an agent for Kenneth, James Ogden, and Joyce Ogden, who have constructed this residence and the accessory garage that we are asking for the conditional use on. The only reason that it would be used for extra use, my clients are 84 years old. They plan to be carried out of their home, and if they have to have in-home care, they can accessorize that other apartment for any of that care, and just for their personal use. They have no intentions of renting it out as an accessory apartment per se. It is for their own use.
Okay,
I don't know that there's anything that I can add. I mean, the reason for the garage is he does collect cars and he keeps his stuff pretty tidy.
okay. And Mr. Clark, if you could give us your address for the record, please?
My address is 9045 South Hillside.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the agent? Yes, Mr. Nix?
Mr. Clark, I was just curious, and I don't know whether I'm supposed to ask this or not, but do they own the property to the west that has been approved for employee recreation park, that piece of property to the west?
From my understanding, that property, I thought it was further west, unless it's right across the street where that looks like they have a ball diamond set up back there for baseball. That's as far as I know as any of the use or the recreational use back there.
The Ogdens don't own the property?
To the west, you're talking about the pond and beach house area that's back beyond the trees that we can't see.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
All right, I don't have any other questions then.
Okay. Any further questions for the agent? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to address the commission on this item? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to address the council or the commission on this case? Anyone virtually that would like to hear this, that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Move to approve per staff comment and recommendation.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Dool to approve per staff comment. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And now we'll hear zoning case 21-00014. Mr. Zevenbergen.
Yes. Zone 2114.
14 or 15? Excuse me.
14.
Did I
Zone
say-
2114.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
The applicant is requesting a zone change from single-family SF5 to LC Limited Commercial on a .84 acre parcel at 2202 West 13th Street. As you can see on the map, it's just shy of the northwest portion of the intersection of 13th and McLean. The purpose of the request is to permit a restaurant as a use. The property consists of 3 buildings. 2 buildings are located at the rear of the property as a single-family dwelling and a detached garage. The 3rd building is directly fronting West 13th Street, and it's the building that the applicant wants to redevelop into a restaurant. If you go into the aerial, I can show them how that looks. So you can see there the building in question is the one farthest to the southwest on the site. The middle building is the house, and the building furthest to the north is the detached garage. County records indicate that this entire property, as it looks right now, was constructed in 1922 and everything built up around it. The property is unplatted, and excuse me, it is the understanding that I just get so choked up on zoning cases. Sorry. Is the understanding that whatever commercial uses were used in the building fronting 13th Street were basically a series of grandfathered rights. Thanks, Scott. We're grandfathered rights in because it had been used for retail in the past. So really this zone change to commercial will be bringing the property into compliance. It is in the intention of the property owner to maintain the single-family home as a home and would just use the building on the southwest portion of the site as the commercial use. Limited commercial does allow residential within its purview, so having two separate uses on the site is okay. The applicant desires to develop the site as a restaurant as permitted in limited commercial, which does not have any restrictions on size or drive-through or drive-up services. Though it is not the intention to immediately have a drive-through, the intention is to, it was kind of used earlier today, but the phrase future-proof the site, that if the entire site got redeveloped for a commercial use, that then there would be space if they wanted to put a drive-through window in. But as of right now, they do not intend to do so, just kind of giving them the back-end ability to do that in the future. Based on that, staff did work with the applicant and is recommending a protective overlay that meets the needs of the applicant the way they want to develop it, but also protects the surrounding neighborhood from uses that would be inappropriate. So staff is recommending a protective overlay to restrict the site to NR, neighborhood retail, except for the restaurant, which would be allowed to operate as if it was in limited commercial. In neighborhood retail, restaurants are limited to 2,000 square feet in size and cannot have drive-throughs or drive-up windows. And so NR allows them the ability to have retail as well as everything that would be in like general office, medical, multifamily, things of that nature. You would just have the ability to have a restaurant as you can develop in limited commercial without having to go through all of these steps of being selective in what you're deleting from the site in terms of uses that would be inappropriate for the area. Property to the north and west are Zone B multifamily. Properties to the north are an apartment. The building right there on Clarence and 13th Street to the west is a medical building. Medical is a permitted use in B multifamily. Property to the east is Zone General Office and is that's right on the corner and their office uses. Property to the south is Zone General Office. At the writing of the staff report, I mentioned it was undeveloped. We recently heard a vacation case that vacated an easement and the intended use was to construct duplexes, and they've actually started moving dirt in order to do so. So though it's Zone General Office, it is actually going to be developed residentially. As I mentioned before, the property is unplatted. The requested zone change does not trigger the platting requirement. However, the subdivision regulations do state that if a remodel is greater or equal to 30% of the floor area of the building, that would require platting, or if it's 50% or more of the value would require platting. That would be handled through the building permit process. They would have to determine that at that time. If they're pulling permits to do remodeling or renovations or things, that's when that would be handled. Access to the site is off of West 13th Street. There are actually two driveways. It kind of makes like a horseshoe shape. The second driveway furthest to the west is shared between this one and the medical building to the west. 13th Street is a 4-lane arterial with sidewalks on both sides, and water and sewer already serve the existing building. The Community Investments Plan identifies this site as appropriate for commercial development, which encompasses the full diversity of commercial development and intensities typically found in an urban municipality. Convenience retail and restaurants, as well as small offices, is included in that list. The site is also located in the established central area, which the Places for People Plan governs in terms of infill redevelopment. The site is located at a neighborhood hub at 13th and McLean, and that is defined as a commercial or mixed-use hub of less than 40,000 square feet, primarily occurring on 1 to 2 blocks of the neighborhood, or centered on the intersection. A neighborhood hub provides a range of goods and services that can satisfy the daily needs of the surrounding neighborhoods. Development is of smaller scale, with individual spaces are typically less than 2,500 square feet in size. That definitely supports the idea of having more of a neighborhood retail zoning versus limited commercial, which does not have restrictions on sizes of retail or restaurants. So overall, staff is recommending approval, and it is not a question mark on whether or not we're going to have a protective overlay. So that's just a typo, will be fixed in the minutes. Protective overlay 368 is, as I said, before restricting the site to neighborhood retail except for the restaurant use, which can be allowed as it is in limited commercial. Finding for our approval recommendation, the zoning and character of the neighborhood is predominantly residential, and the only commercial zoning nearby within like 1 to 2 blocks is general office. And so this would be, there is more limited commercial if you go further west closer to Meridian, but really there's a fair amount of residential between here and there. And so there's kind of this buffer space from what is a much more intensive corridor on 13th Street versus what's more of a more neighborhood scale intersection here at 13th and McLean. And so, again, that's more supportive of a neighborhood retail zoning. The site is zoned SF5 and can continue with the single-family home. However, over time, it would just get complicated on whether or not some certain uses are grandfathered in based on the age of the property. So really, this is a way to clean up the uses on the site and what's permitted and not permitted with that building that fronts 13th Street. Zoning to limited commercial could introduce a number of uses that would not be compatible with the surrounding area. So this is why we're, again, recommending the protective overlay, which would minimize negative impacts surrounding the area and provide opportunity for in-kind development that is like the general office that's nearby, in addition to the retail and restaurant use. The site has been developed at its current state since 1922. Approval would represent the gain for the applicant and provide new economic opportunity with the business that serves the surrounding area, which is considered a gain for the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. Talked about the conformance of the comprehensive plan, and approval of the request should not generate any major impacts to community facilities. Existing public infrastructure at the site can accommodate the proposed use. It was heard at DAB 6 last night. There was some discussion of possible traffic impacts with 13th Street being near the intersection, and how across the bridge to the east they put in center kind of pylons to, you can't see it on the aerial here, but prohibit turning across 13th Street. I think it's at Perry Street, but if you've driven there, people cannot cross the intersection getting onto 13th, nor can you turn onto Perry Street to the north if you're going east. That's really more looked at from a plating perspective. The scale of the restaurant as they're proposing right now really should not impact traffic all that much. They're proposing anywhere from maybe 10 to 15 seats only. They understand that they would have to come into compliance with the parking requirement depending on how many seats they put in their restaurant. The parking requirement is 1 space per 3 seats. My understanding is that this is like a barbecue food truck who's looking to like start off with a small brick and mortar business just to see how things go, and again would then have the opportunity to expand the business on the site with redevelopment if he chooses to, if he wanted to expand the building or have a drive-through or something like that. So not necessarily anticipating a lot of vehicle traffic just because there's going to be limited capacity in the building anyway with how small it is. So there really was no major concern about the use itself. I did have one phone call from the property owner to the west who was concerned about whether or not liquor would be served. And I went through the whole explanation that restaurants, if they serve 50% food or more, they can serve alcohol. But the approval of the zoning doesn't automatically grant him a liquor license. It is unknown whether or not he's pursuing that, not necessarily germane to the zoning request right now. His concern was whether or not drinking could have an impact on his neighborhood to the west if like they were having extended hours and all of a sudden the restaurant use kind of stops and people are more drinking later at night, whereas people would be eating during the day and they still meet their food sales quota. But again, just approval of the zoning doesn't automatically approve him the ability to serve alcohol. Don't know if that's his intention or not anyway, but that's just been what I've heard from the neighbors, and I can stand for any questions.
Do you have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Nix.
I know we're not talking about the building to the west, but we've mentioned it several times. Does it have to be used for medical? Does that have some, can it have any other use?
It's Zone B multifamily, and so it can be
medical facility.
Yeah, and B multifamily is the first zoning classification that medical services are permitted. One of those very odd, kind of unnatural things we don't see very often. But in the zoning code, medical services are allowed first in B multifamily.
The reason I ask, I mean, it's vacant, it has been for a while, so.
The medical building has?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so.
there's a sign on it that says medical, but Does it
Nobody's
make
in
it
there, okay.
medical?
Like I said, this individual who called me, he's a property owner but does not live in Wichita. I did inform him of how to participate virtually or over the phone today, so I don't know if he's going to be here. Obviously, during the public, we didn't get to the point of hearing if anybody in the audience was, because a commissioner wanted to hear this case. So we'll see if that public comment is here. But yeah, it can be used for medical. It could also just be redeveloped for multifamily use. You can do duplexes, single-family homes. There's a few public and civic uses you could do as well.
I just know back in the day, we used to buy Christmas trees at that place.
Yeah, that's, yeah, right over there.
Yes, Ms. Fosbury.
Do I understand this correctly, that the way this is written, that this change in zoning will allow drive-through?
Yes.
Okay.
So, are we sure there's room for drive-through around that little building?
Like I said, according to the agent last night at the DAB meeting, he said the intention is not to have one right now because there really is no space.
I don't think so.
But again, it allows the opportunity that if the entire site were redeveloped and say like they scrape everything and build a new building, which there is space for, they could then orient the building to have a drive-through in the future.
And it would require plating.
Right, it would require plating, and they would look at all the drainage, they would look at traffic impacts, they would look at circulation on the site, things of that nature. Yes, they could try to put a drive-through, but we have queuing space requirements that if you can't meet, you have to get a variance. So like, odds are against probably a drive-through going in right now just because of having to meet all the stipulations in the zoning code. And again, how you oriented to get a drive-through lane in there when you have to do your parking. I mean, he's not really intending to do it now, but again, it's more of like future-proofing again, where instead of having to come back and ask for another zone change, you know, have the ability to do now, though it's unlikely, then if it ever redevelops in the future, it can do that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this point? Hearing none, do we have the agent or applicant, the owner, online?
I believe Charlie Brown with PEC was going to be participating. He represented last night. We forgot to ask if he was here. Oh, here he is.
I am here.
But he's here.
I'm here, yes.
man, Charlie.
Yes, Charlie Brown with C, representing Mr. Snyder. I don't know if he's in the audience, perhaps. I don't know if he's in attendance. I'm obviously attending by remote. So I think the intent was, or is, that this little building in the front would be remodeled, a minor remodel, putting in new restrooms that would be ADA compliant with 3 or 4 tables, seating 12 to 15 to 20 people. There is no room physically to put in a drive-through with this existing building. So there would be some on-site parking. It would be probably to the east of the building in the grass area that you see there on the aerial photo. But the intent is not to build the drive-through at this time. It's just to give us some flexibility in the future. So at this point, it is a minor remodel. Again, I think it's a barbecue. The potential tenant has a barbecue food truck. I think he wants a brick and mortar presence. It's a very small operation. And so this particular method of getting him the right to do that is acceptable to us. We do support all of the staff comments. So I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Charlie. Did we get his address for the record?
303 South Topeka.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. 303 South. Are there any questions for Charlie Brown? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to speak to this case? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have one question to staff.
yes.
I'm sitting here looking at this configuration of the aerial, and it overlaps and goes into McLean Boulevard. Does that mean that there could be an exit onto McLean Boulevard, whether it be right in or right out, at that northeast corner of this piece of property?
With the property not being platted, it doesn't necessarily have access control assigned. However, my opinion would be that traffic engineering would have to review that. I don't know 100% on that since it's not platted. That would be reviewed during platting, and typical arterials have access control, but that is a good question.
The reason why I'm asking, if you look across the street on the aerial, there's a cul-de-sac there, houses back into the river and houses back into McLean Boulevard. Well, they took and put you can see at the end of that cul-de-sac, they put a one-way in for fire department to get in and out of there.
Yeah.
That was my reason why I was asking that, because that piece of ground with this residential would be exactly at a larger scale than what this is here. That's the reason I asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We have a motion.
I move
I'll move
we
to
approve
approve
item
the staff
4.5
comments.
per staff recommendations.
Okay, Ms. Foster moved to approve per staff comment, was second by Mr. Nix. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Any other business that we need to address?
I have a couple of items, Mr. Chairman. No, they shouldn't take very long, I promise. I did want to just recognize our staff, our administrative staff. Wednesday was Administrative Staff Day, and so I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them because they're the ones who put together the packets. They help coordinate and get information distributed to y'all. So I just want to make sure that they're duly recognized for their efforts. And on that note, I also want to let you know that Betsy has informed us that she is leaving the department. And so her last day will be not this upcoming Friday, but will actually be next week, next Thursday, is what she's planning on. Yes. So
Is she staying in the city government?
my understanding is that she will remain in the city. So as far as employment, and so. And that's good for us because she will be an important resource for us as we make that transition.
All right. Is that all?
That's all I've got.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.